When deciding who the best manager in the Championship is, many people might turn to one of the top 4 sides, maybe a Danny Röhl, maybe a Michael Carrick, but in my opinion, Marti Cifuentes at QPR is the best manager in the Championship, and here's why. So Cifuentes joined QPR on the 30th of October in 2023, keeping them up in that season after a 4-0 win against Leeds in April. And since then, he's had a couple of windows to build his side, and I think when we talk about a manager, I think transfers are very important. People often talk about Danny Röhl and his tactics and his ability with what he's got. I don't doubt that Danny Röhl is an excellent head coach and definitely one of the best in the Championship along with Cifuentes. But I think where Cifuentes really pips him in the sort of ranking is where his management in general, his signings, where he gets them from with his history in Sweden and other countries in Europe. That really adds to his game, and he's made some really shrewd signings with QPR. So the majority of QPR signings come from abroad in different countries in Europe. An example of that could be Jonathan Varane, signed from Sporting Gijon, Koki Saito, signed from Lommel in Belgium. Paul Nardi was signed on a free from Belgian side Ghent. Daniel Benny was signed not from Europe but from Perth Glory in Australia. Whether that was more of a club signing, I don't know. He's an 18-year-old, but he's featured a few times in the league for them. And that's important because the previous manager, Gareth Ainsworth, is very much, he was at Wycombe for 9-10 years, so he's going to keep with the players he knows. So it's really important, I think, for QPR to bring someone in from maybe something a bit different. It was a brave choice because QPR at the time were in a relegation battle. It was a brave choice, but I think it really paid off for them. Now, they're building a younger side. Obviously, there's loans here as well, Karamoko Dembele and most recently Ronnie Edwards from Southampton. He's got the backing from the board. After Steve Cook's injury, Liam Morrison also picked up a knock. And on the 1st of January, they signed Ronnie Edwards on the loan from Southampton, which is not only an excellent player, but they're immediately covering the gaps in defence that they had. Now, players are coming back from injury and Ronnie Edwards is still in the side, so for Ronnie Edwards, that's really good as well. But mainly the point I'm getting at is that the board back him massively. He's done a brilliant job. At the start of this season, it was really tough for QPR. They started the season off with a 3-1 loss to West Brom. I thought they were unlucky in that game, to be fair. They scored first. First real sighting for QPR fans of Ryan Colley, who is a very high-rated young player, and we will talk about the youth because I think that's another strength of Marti Cifuentes. They then picked up a good result against Sheffield United, who are now in the top 2 or 3. It was tough against Plymouth in their game after that. Plymouth got 2 red cards, but they were held to 1-1 draw. And after winning against Luton, they went on a bit of a bad run. They went on a 13-game winless run. Now, that included a lot of draws against a lot of top sides, including Burnley, Sunderland. But also they lost in the FA Cup to Crystal Palace in that 13-game winless run. But once they got that 2-0 win away at Cardiff, where Salah scored twice, once they got that win, they should have beaten Watford, really, after that. They smashed Norwich off the park. They played Norwich off the park in that game. That was a real dominant showing, as was the Oxford game a few days later. I was really impressed with them in that game. Bristol City away, they scored a very good goal to get a very good point. But maybe that wasn't one of their better performances. But apart from the odd game against Swansea, their form has really picked up. But before Sheffield Wednesday, 4 wins in a row against the likes of Watford, Luton, Plymouth, Hull. A lot of them are fighting down the bottom, but they're fighting down the bottom, and QPR are in a position where they can genuinely push for the playoffs if this run keeps going. Now, their most recent loss against Sheffield Wednesday was an unfortunate one, but you will get freak games like the Swansea one, like the Wednesday one, where football in the Championship is so unpredictable, and the EFL in general. So I can understand a freak game every now and again. So the recent run of form leaves QPR 13th in the league and 6 points off of the playoffs. Now, the sides in the playoffs are very strong. That top 4 is far and away now. But West Brom and Middlesbrough, I find West Brom obviously draw a lot of games. Middlesbrough are inconsistent at times. They tend to have a good run and a bad run. It's just down to the teams below the playoff positions. It's just down to them to get some consistency together. Now, Blackburn Rovers have been good this season, but a bit of a bad run at the moment. I don't trust them to stay consistent. Bristol City, I don't think are going to get anywhere this season. I'm sorry, Bristol City fans, but you've got some good players, but you just don't have that enough. You see each season, you just don't quite have enough to push on into that playoff fight and the promotion race. Don't know why. Just Bristol City just feel they need to finish 10th every season. Watford, again, inconsistent. They probably sacked their manager. I mean, I know they made a whole go about their social media about how they didn't, but they're in a bit of a bad run at the moment, and I don't see them picking up the consistency required to get into that playoff places. Norwich, again, good team, but inconsistent. Once Borges Sykes is back, I see them as the main sort of competitor up there in the playoff places. And Coventry, obviously, had a bad start to the season, but Frank Lampard as a manager in this level, at any level, I think Frank Lampard's a decent manager at any level, but in the Championship, he's a good manager. And that Coventry City team is definitely good enough to get in that playoff spot. I had them getting promoted, what do I know? But they're definitely good enough, even now, to get in those playoff places. If we sort of disregard anyone beneath QPR, and that's not because I don't think they're good enough, I just don't see Preston do anything this season. And then sort of Oxford down would be my relegation scrap. They're not in relegation scraps. Oxford's done brilliantly to get out of that. I had them to go down in my last video. They've done brilliantly. Gary Rowett's the perfect manager for them to get them out of this rut they're in. But I see that as a sort of cut-off point down, if you like, where Preston aren't really going to do anything, and then QPR up will be my playoff push type teams. Now back to Cifuentes himself. I briefly mentioned that youth is a good strength of his. Sort of using the youth is a good strength of his. He uses the youth in a very interesting way. He doesn't put any sort of real pressure on them. Ryan Colley who's 19. He's 19. He's got 4 goals, 2 assists this season. He uses them in a very interesting way. He uses them not to maybe provide the quality that they need, because some of these players might not be good enough yet for to make a real impact. But Alfie Lloyd just comes on and he runs his heart. He runs himself into the ground, and that is a really good player to have. Alfie Lloyd isn't going to score 10, 15 goals in the Championship yet. He's still only young. He's 21, but Marti Cifuentes uses him in a way where, he runs at tired defenders, tired goalkeepers. He was man of the match against Hull, despite, Koki Saito scoring and Pyle scoring. So that just shows you how important a player like that can be. And if you haven't seen his reaction after his goal against Sheffield Wednesday, do. Not only the goal, but his reaction afterwards. He was just absolutely buzzing, and it's really good to have young players that really want to fight for your team. And you can definitely tell that not only the young players, but all of the players are really behind the manager. I also mentioned the centre-back issue. Now, a player in particular I want to talk about would be Jimmy Dunn. Now, Jimmy Dunn is a centre-back by trade. He was signed as by QPR to play as a centre-back, and he was a good centre-back, but due to a problem last season with right-backs not being up to it and being injured, Cifuentes pushed Jimmy Dunn out to right back, and that is seen a lot of success. Jimmy Dunn is in the form of his life, not only with goals and assists, but he's in his prime. He's 27, and he's become a really good, mobile, strong right back. He has had to fill in a few times as centre back this season, but I think his real strengths come as a right back. He's got 4 goals and 1 assist. QPR use long throws a lot, and they like to get crosses into the box. And when you have Jimmy Dunn running at the back post, with the delivery of Chair and Pyle and a lot of the players in this team, he can be very, very dangerous, along with the long throw of Smith as well that always aims for Dunn. I just like the dynamic of Cifuentes' style. The back four with Jimmy Dunn as a more robust right back, with Pyle as more of a midfielder type left back, if you like, more of a winger type, going to get forward, and Jimmy Dunn often slips into a back 3 with the other 2 centre-backs while Pyle pushes forward, and then vice versa. Pyle, obviously, with his experience in midfield, can also slot in that position if needs be. The midfield, sort of the captain field, well, the captain while Steve Cook's injured, and Varane, who is a very good player. I like Varane. He's almost like he's like a Rodri. Field and Varane, if you combine them together, they'd be like a Rodri, which is what every team in every division wants and needs at the moment. They need a Declan Rice or a Rodri type player. That, that's almost become. It used to be that if you had a good number 9, say like League One for example, if you have a decent defence and a good number 9, they say you should go up in League One. In the Championship, if you have that good holding midfield player, I mean, Coventry last season got to an FA Cup semi-final because of Ben Sheaf in midfield. He was so good for them last season that, I think a player like that is really important, especially in the Championship, all over football at the moment. Moving up the pitch, another young player, Kieran Morgan, not a QPR Academy product, which is why I didn't talk about him a minute ago, but a really talented player. I'm not sure why Spurs let him go, to be honest. I don't think the plan was ever to have him playing regularly in the Championship, but he's just done so well since coming in. He's earned his place after he got that first goal off the bench. He proved to be a real impact player, and he's got man of the match a few times as well. So another strength for Cifuentes, both signing the young player for free as well and bringing him into the team in a good way by making him impact substitute, and then him earning the place in the team. You've got Whippet at right wing with Paul Smith, who also has a long throw, that's very effective. Chair, obviously, on the other side. Another injury problem they've had to deal with is Ilias Chair on the left-hand side. He's had a few injuries, but he looks to be going slowly back to his best, which is good for QPR. And then he didn't start in the latest game. But Michael Frey, who is a player I really like, proper target man, but he's also now he's fit. He also looked quite technical and he has a long sort of ball in him. He's the perfect number 9 for this team. So I really like the way the team's set up. And if we're going to compare Cifuentes to Danny Roll, who I think would be a lot of people's top pick for manager in the Championship, maybe a Lampard or someone like that. But I think, as I said, Cifuentes over Danny Roll would be his sort of. Danny Roll is maybe he's a better head coach, but I think that Cifuentes is a better manager, and yes, he might have more backing from the QPR owners than Danny Roll has from Chansiri, but I think that Cifuentes uses that backing very well, signs some very smart players from Leicester teams, because Jonathan Varane was signed for £1 million, right? If he is a player who was at League One, I think you'd have to pay a lot more than that to sign a player of his quality. So having the scouting knowledge that Cifuentes and his coaching staff no doubt have from his experiences in Sweden and elsewhere, I think is a real benefit to both him and QPR this season. And we've seen that with the signings that they made from, as we've said, Belgium and other places in Europe, even Australia. Whether that's QPR's coaching staff or Cifuentes, but at the end of the day, Cifuentes has to approve those signings, and they turned out to be, a lot of them have turned out to be good signings for them. There's been a few hit and misses, but I think you get that with any manager. I don't think Madson's overly effective, and he was signed for quite a lot of money from Westerlo in Belgium. But overall, I think Cifuentes as a manager is the best in the league, and I think he can lead QPR to a playoff push. Do I think they'll finish in the playoffs? I think there's a good chance. I think it's all down to the consistency, as I said, of the teams around them. Whether West Brom pick up a bit under Mowbray, whether Middlesbrough can find some consistency, whether Coventry keep rising under Lampard. But I think QPR, with the manager they've got, have put a really good platform to build this season and maybe next season to finish in the playoffs and get promoted to the Premier League. Thank you for watching. This has been The Woodwork. Leave a comment down below on who you think the best manager in the Championship is. Thanks for watching.